Let's bring it all together. This video is about working the plan to move your relationship forward. Specifically, today I'll be talking about moving through separation and divorce. I'll make a separate video that's talking about if you make the decision to try and work through your relationship one more time. I'm your friendly neighborhood coach, Jason. Let's go. First of all, I know this isn't easy. You've probably thought a lot about this. And if you've made the decision to move on from your relationship, you haven't done it lightly. And it makes sense to be concerned, maybe even worried about what's going to happen in your future. You also should be concerned and worried about what will happen if you stick to your default relationship, which is why I encourage you to watch this video and work through the plan and see where it goes. You're never stuck with any plan. The point of making a plan is to help yourself understand what your options are and to understand you're not stuck. At any point in a plan, you can change the plan and work on something different. This is so you know what you will do if you continue to make the decision to separate. There are reasons we don't take it lightly that we are making decisions to separate or divorce in our lives as serious adults. If you get to the point where things change and things are improving, you didn't waste your time because having the plan gives you peace of mind and helps you with your mental health. We're going to talk about what your journey will look like. And I want to give a quick recap in case people haven't watched the videos before this one, just to understand how we got here. We're going to talk about the choice to move forward. The bottom line is what you're doing isn't working. You've read all the books. Maybe you've been to therapy. You might even have been to couples therapy. But the bottom line is you feel like you're the only person who's working on this relationship, or you have significant reasons not to work on the relationship anymore due to your partner's behavior and attitudes. It's not something that you take lightly, but making this decision is based on the fact that you have already put in what you feel is a reasonable effort in this relationship, and you really don't see it improving. The default future of your relationship at this point is getting worse and worse, and you can't seem to get your partner to be a partner. Once you've made this decision, it's really important that you think about who you should tell. Like we said in previous videos, you don't want to talk to someone who's going to add more drama, more difficulty to this, or someone who's going to tell other people before you're ready to tell them. When I say who should you tell, I mean who should you tell first? Who can you walk beside through this whole process? So what I'm going to encourage you to do, as I did in earlier videos, is when you decide to tell the person, go lightly with it. At first, just tell them that you're thinking about it, that you are seriously thinking about ending the relationship. Watch their reaction. Do they make it about themselves? Do they treat it as gossip? Do they immediately become overhyped about it and talk about immature things that you are not interested in? But take it in baby steps. When you decide who you want to tell, I want you even then to not tell them all at once necessarily, but sort of test the waters on how it's going with that person and telling them. The next thing is to learn the rules in your area. There are many rules about marriage, separation, and divorce, and you understanding it is going to save you money when you get to the point of talking to your lawyer. When you talk to your lawyer, they're going to ask you questions. And if you haven't had time to think about it, what happens to people sometimes is they give a knee-jerk reaction instead of a well thought out answer to what their lawyer is asking them. So you finding out what the rules are and what phrases mean. So when a lawyer asks you, well, who's the majority parent? What does that mean in your area? When the lawyer asks you, who do you want to be the majority parent afterwards? What does that mean in your area? There are numbers connected with that. If the lawyer asks you about support, there are things that drive that in your area about who gets support. There's a difference between spousal support and child support. And in many areas, this is slightly different. Your lawyer is going to go based on what you tell them. So it's important that you understand the definitions of these terms, because otherwise you will waste money. The cost of divorces is upwards of tens of thousands of dollars. And if you don't understand what you're getting into, there is a risk. And it's not that your lawyer is going to do this on purpose, but if you give them the wrong information, they're going to go on that information because it's all that they have. And then you might spend months, I've seen it. You might spend months working with the lawyer where they're billing you for it and you're asking for things that you're not entitled to and your partner doesn't have to give to you. They might choose to give it to you, but there's a different approach that we use when we're asking for things from someone than when we're entitled to them. So learning the rules is really important. I've listed in earlier videos links of where you can look for that. I will also list them at the bottom of this video. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of making a plan. Our brains are predictive engines. By time you've gotten to the point where you're ready to get separated or divorced, this risk that you are facing is that you are also going through grief. And the lens that you make your vision for the future through is going to be through your grief. Remember, there's all of the different parts of grief. If you're having denial about what your future is going to be like, the risk there is that you're not actually understanding all of the things that are going to happen in your future or that reasonably will happen in your future. And you're going to make plans that don't make sense based on that. If you're going through sadness or anger, which are also parts of grief, you're going to assume that things are going to be horrible regardless of the actual numbers that are in your bank account. You're going to say, oh, I'm going to be broke and lonely, this and that. You're not going to account for the fact that you actually, if you did a budget, that you would actually be okay. And that's important. So making a plan with numbers and dates helps to get rid of some of the things that our brains just make up that when they're trying to predict our future through grief. So it's really important to actually make a plan and not just say, that's it, I'm out. Sometimes that's where we are and we don't have a choice. You may be watching this and be in the process of going through your separation or divorce already. It's not too late. You can still take a step back, cast a vision for your future and make a plan so that you actually are getting what you want out of your future. You don't just want to get out of your marriage, you want to get into a life that you really want to have. So let's talk about working the plan. The first thing, obviously, is to make the decision that things have to change. You can't just keep on doing the same things and expect a different outcome. So your first step is to make a decision to yourself that you want your life to be different. Once you've made that decision about your life being different, you can start making the baby steps to say, well, if I want my life to be this way in a year or in 5 years, I need to start taking the baby steps now to get to that. That is the most likely way that you will actually be able to make the change. So once you've made the decision that you actually want things to change, the next thing you want to do is actually start casting a vision for your future and capture it somewhere. Whether you record it on video, audio, write it down, you want to capture what you want your future to look like. Now, I have seen in the past where people will put it on their bedside table. I'm not kidding. And their partner finds it and they're not ready to talk to their partner about it yet. So you need to be discreet. When you're creating this vision for your future, put it somewhere where it will remain private as long as you want it to. Remember what I said. You're never stuck and you can always change, but the information that you are putting together in order to give yourself hope for the future, if it comes out at the wrong time, it can actually badly affect the chances of it going the way that you want it to. And I want you to really focus on what you want. It's very easy for us to focus on the negative and think about our partner. Oh, he always does that. Oh, she always does this. The point of getting separated is that they are not going to be in your life in the same way anymore. If you have kids, yeah, you're going to co-parent with them probably on some level, but they're not going to be in your day-to-day life. And you need to think about what you want your life to be like without them. So take the time and put this together. That is your first step. And it might take you a couple weeks. This is a big deal. This might be the first time in decades that you've thought about what you want your life to be like because you've just gone along with what your partner wanted, what the kids needed, what your parents wanted. There are so many outside factors of what you thought was going to happen in your relationship, and you need a new vision. Take the time on this step. While you're taking the time on this step, I want you to think about details. Where do you want to live? What kind of place do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a condo or a house? Do you want to live in a different part of town than you're used to? What kind of vacations do you want to take? What do you want your finances to look like? For a lot of us, our finances have been wrapped up in the relationship that we've been in for decades. And now is your chance to build something that you actually want to have. So when I say take your time on this, I want you to get into the details of what you want this to look like. The next step, once you have your vision, is to build your team. Your team, like I said before, is going to be made up of that friend that you feel comfortable telling at first, just one, but eventually you're going to have other friends that you tell. Just like I said at the beginning, you want to take baby steps with this and see if the people are trustworthy, if they are worthy of your trust in keeping secrets. Some friends are a lot of fun, but they're not great at walking beside you through difficult times. What you want are the friends who are good at walking beside you during difficult times. Eventually, you're going to add to your team support, as in a lawyer. You might hire a relationship coach or a life coach like myself, who is going to help you to move through things and keep you accountable to the things that you want to do. You want to build up your team, you're going to need support. This is not something that you want to do on your own. You want to have people walking beside you to help you get through this. One of the ways that you can actually know that people are good for walking beside you through difficult times is something called active listening. Active listening is where one person, this is a very simplified version of active listening, where one person's job is to express an idea and the other person's job is just to make sure that they understand. This means that when you are speaking, the other person isn't to offer advice or anything like that. They're just there to make sure that they understand what you're saying. So if you say, I really think I'm done with my relationship, the other person can say something that might seem simple, like, what I'm hearing is that you are ready to get separated and move on. And then you get to have a conversation based on that. And when you're ready for support, you move from active listening to a real conversation that we're used to, where you're ready for support, you're ready for input from the other person. You can try using this as a framework to have the conversation with your friends before you move into them giving you support that you're not ready yet for things you're not ready to talk about. Sometimes when your friends are trying to help, they run the risk of, I'll use the word triggering, and I don't mean in the clinical sense, but they trigger you and you can't finish getting out what you're trying to say because you're so emotionally moved by the things that they bring up. You saying that you're ready to move forward, and then your friend says, oh, well, what about the kids? What about the schools that they go to? What are you going to do about all of that? It's something that is not going to help you to make the plan. You need help making the plan. Your vision is the first part. When you get your support system, you're going to make a plan with dates and times and all of those things in it. And you're going to want people to help you get clarity around what your actual life is going to look like next month, next week, when you're going to call a lawyer, that kind of thing. The vision is your first step. And then when you're getting your support system, you first just want to be able to talk to them without working through the nitty gritty yet. So once you've told your friend, you want to start working on learning what the rules are, as I said earlier. What are the things that you need to do in order to have a separation in your area. In my area, you have to have what's called a separation agreement, and eventually you get a divorce. Some people can take years between getting the separation agreement and getting a divorce. The things that are in the separation agreement are the separation of assets and liabilities, the the custody of the children, spousal support if you're going to have any, child support if you're going to have any. All of those things go into the separation agreement, as well as the dates and how you disclose finances. There's a bunch of minutia that goes into there in my area, and that could go on for years before people get an actual divorce. So you want to learn the rules, you want to learn what you're entitled to and what you're not, so that you can go into the negotiation, which is what a separation is, clear headed and open eyed. Once you learn the rules, you want to figure out who you would get as a mediator or a lawyer. I suggest both. The mediator is for both of you. You need one mediator for both of you. But at some point, you're going to want a lawyer. You're going to want your own lawyer, because in order for this to become legally binding, one of the things that the court or the law is going to want to know is that you understand what you're doing and that your partner understands. And it's a conflict of interest for you to use one lawyer because whose lawyer is it? And who's negotiating on your behalf? The mediator will tell you the rules, and a lot of time they'll create a non-binding agreement that you can present to your lawyers for them to use as a framework for a separation agreement. But your lawyer is your agent. Your lawyer is your representative, and they're there to protect you and make sure that you are not getting taken advantage of. When you're making this plan, I want you to plan all of the moments. Think about all of the times where you're going to need support. This is very difficult to go through because many of the things that you go through at some point in life, you're going to go through at the same time. Moving is difficult. As part of separation, somebody, at least one of you is going to move, or both of you are going to move, right? That is a challenge in of its own. Just moving is a challenge for a lot of people. Parenting, you parenting solo. You might be accustomed to, if you have kids, having a night where your partner's at home or they're away on business. But parenting solo means that for days on end, you're going to be the solo parent in the home for the kids, which isn't single parenting. It's not the same thing. The kids are going to go to see their parent, or the parent's going to have visitation with them, or there's other resources that the kids are getting from that parent. Some people are getting separated because that's not true. But I'm talking about, in most cases, there's a reality that the kids are getting something, it's just not equal from both parents. Going into the separation, there will be days where you're basically an empty nester, where there's no one in your house for days on end, and the kids aren't going to be there. And it's actually hard for a lot of people to go through that because it's not something that a lot of people consider. Think about the support that you're going to need the first night that the kids aren't sleeping at home because they are at your ex's, not your partners anymore, at your ex's. You want to have people in line to support you through that. You also want to think about if you have to move in with family or friends for a period of time. Some people do this just because, as I said before, divorce can be expensive and timing might be an issue, and sometimes safety is an issue. If you need to move in with family or friends at your adult age, there can be many challenges and you will want support in that also. One of the things you need support in is making a budget for paying all of your bills on your own if you've been accustomed to having a mix of one partner pays this bill, the other partner pays this bill, or all the money goes into one account. If you are going through separation, it is likely that you are going to have to pay those bills on your own, on time, and make sure that everything stays afloat. So if you need help going through the budget, you need support for that. You need someone who will go through your accounts with you and say, well, right now, this is how much you're spending on going out and a car note and all of the things that are there, your insurances, all of that stuff. You want to make sure that when you get separated, that everything stays whole and you can afford your life. You may have to make some lifestyle changes, but you want to think about it before you get to that to make sure that you are okay and taken care of. You also want support if you're starting to date again. If you've been married for some time and you haven't been out there, dating has changed and you have changed, and you will need support when you get into that. You will also need support if you go through missing your ex, which people do. They miss their ex no matter how terrible their ex is. And it's not that they want to get back with them, but they have a moment where they go through the feelings and you need support to go through that. You also might actually miss former mutuals and former family who make the choice to just stay on one side of the fence, or just organically you spend less and less time with them, and you will need to build your own support system so that you don't experience as much grief from missing those people without support. You want to have people that are there for you specifically. Last but not least, you want support to help you when you have meetings with the lawyer, when you go to mediation, when you are signing the separation agreement, because there's emotions that will come up as you're going through that. It's a big deal. You're going to go through all of these contracts. And then after you're done with the lawyer, yes, it's done. but you still are going to go through the emotional turmoil that comes after it sometimes, and you will need support for that. It's a big deal to have your support ready on the dates that matter. So you tell them ahead of time. You say, hey, Wednesday's the first night that the kids are going to be out of the house. Could you just be on standby in case I need someone to talk to? I have a meeting with the lawyer on Friday. Could you be on standby in case I need to talk to someone afterwards? That's what I'm talking about, making sure that your support is in place. Your plan should have all of the key dates in it. I'm just going to have a list here of the key dates or some of the key dates that you want to put in your plan. The first date is when you start writing down that you have made a decision to move on from your old relationship. That might be today when you're watching this video. It might be when you've had some time to think about. Another date is when you're going to take time to make the vision for a year and 5 years from now of what you want your life to be. The next date that you want is telling your trusted friend. When are you going to tell your trusted friend? And who is that trusted friend going to be that you're going to try and have that conversation with? What date will you take with time to learn the local rules about separation? You want to block some time off that might take you an hour or a couple hours. Some areas have clear things online that make it easy for you to know, and others is not so much. You want to find out as much as you can about the rules within reason. So you want to make this plan. You need a date for when you're going to start working on the plan. Where are you going to work on it? A coffee shop, probably not at home in front of your partner, but where are you going to make this plan and where are you going to start? When are you going to start? A big date that you want on there is when you're telling your partner that you need a change in the relationship and that you have decided that you need to get separated. To be fair, your partner might be broadsided by this. It depends on how much you talked about it before, and they might need time to think about it. In many areas, as long as one person has made the decision to separate, it is an official separation. You don't need your partner's consent in most areas to separate. So one of the reasons that you want to tell someone is that it's documented that you have made the decision to separate. Once you've done that, you've officially started the process of the separation. But when that date that you put in the plan for telling your partner, it's not unreasonable if you and your partner are going to be negotiating in the future to have a conversation follow up to the date that you tell them. So you can tell them and say, if you want to talk about it, I think we should make time to talk about how we want this to work, what you want for your future, and to give them some time to think about it. You've had by now all this time to make your vision and make your plan. So you want a date for when you're going to tell your partner, and then you want a separate date for when you're going to talk about how things are going to work, when you're going to tell the kids, when you're going to tell family. All of those things are dates that you should have in your plan, but your partner might adjust those dates for reasons that you find valid, and you should be willing to change those dates if you find them valid. It's not just you involved, it's you and your partner and your community who are involved in the separation. You also want the dates when you're going to find a mediator, a lawyer, when you're going to engage a coach or friends. You can have accountability groups or friends if you can't afford to engage a lawyer or a coach at the beginning. At some point, you are going to need a lawyer. If it's a really amicable separation, sometimes the lawyer is just to explain things, make sure you agree, and then say, write a note as an officer of the court that you understand everything and it's been discussed with a lawyer, and then you're good to go. That is what's typically called a low friction separation, where you both agree it's time to move on and you can write it up and agree to things with very little friction. That's great if you can do that. And then you barely need a lawyer. You still going to want a lawyer, but it's more towards the end. If things are high friction, you want people to walk beside you earlier, because when you're going through it, it's very difficult to think clearly. You want the moving dates in there also. We talked about that already. The first night's changed custody. That's something that you want in your plan. And last but not least, something I call not adversaries. You want support for the days that used to have deep meaning to you. And I can tell you from experience that over time, some of these will fade. Some of these won't even be something you remember eventually. But your partner's birthday, your anniversary, Valentine's Day, these are days that used to have deep meaning for you with your partner. And when you are going through separation, you want to make sure you have support when those dates come up, whether that's from a friend, a therapist, a coach. You want to have something in place so that you're okay when those days come. So that's basically it. You need this plan. You need to go through it. I'll put the links to all the tools that I've created for this series below. You can feel free to email me if you do want to talk to someone about your separation. I don't charge for the first call. So if you want to see if it's a good fit, you go ahead and send me an email and we'll schedule something. And as far as your lawyer, you want to look locally. If you have friends who have been separated, it's a good you know, link to ask them and see if their lawyer was somebody who they would recommend. Similarly, for mediators, lawyers, mediators, and coaches are not created equally. So you want to see what the fit is. Lawyers will have a discovery session with you also where they talk to you and tell you how they work. Part of what you're doing in that is seeing what the vibe is between you and the lawyer and how they bill you, right? Are they going to maximize legal assistant where you're charged less? Are they going to bill you a lump sum in retainer and then take off the top and then give you the rest back? These are all the things that a lawyer is going to tell you just to see if you're a good fit. And I really suggest you do that. I hope this helps. Please take care of yourself.